I'm Kevin Holland, and I'm here to tell you that you're listening to the Decarbonisation Dialogue, a podcast from Salix.
Welcome to Delivering on Climate Change, our collective challenge. Welcome to the Decarbonisation Dialogue. I am Hannah Walker, and I believe that the best way to communicate a message is by being passionate about what you are talking about. Through that passion, I believe you take people with you and create action using your influence to make change and make a difference. Our task today is to get all of us to net zero. My guest today is Ian O'Donnell MBE to talk about his work with the Federation of Small Business. Ian was co-opted to the Federation of Small Business in March 2023, following more than 10 years as an active Federation of Small Business member volunteer. Ian has been a business owner since his school days, running a creative design and marketing agency. He serves as a non-executive director and business growth consultant for SMEs and is entrepreneur in residence and teaching fellow at Coventry University. He is also a public speaker. In 2017, Ian received an MBE in the Birthday Honours List for services to the economy and the community in the West Midlands. At Coventry since 2016 and lectures on entrepreneurship, innovation and marketing. He is also founder and director of a digital marketing agency and a non-executive director of several SMEs, including the FSB, Federation of Small Business, serves as deputy chair of UK policy and leads on net zero, regularly meeting with leading decision makers to develop policy solutions to create a better environment for SMEs to thrive. I was going to ask about spare time later, but I don't think Ian's going to have any spare time because that's quite a CV. So thank you very much to Ian for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So, Ian, start by telling us a little bit about your career. You set up a business while still at school. So I'd love to know about that. And I'd love to know what drives you as an entrepreneur and where all these ideas come from. And I'm going to be very selfish because I've also got a little idea that I'm going to run past you. But tell us about your ideas and where they come from and how you started.
My journey started actually with Young Enterprise at school. I did the Young Enterprise project at school when I was in lower six and found that I just loved the business aspect, sort of the ability to determine what you wanted things to be like rather than following a conventional career path. Since then, run that business, still do have that business. It's changed slightly. That was back in the days of print. Nowadays, it's all about digital. But as I sort of developed that, got involved with lots of different companies in the nature of developing their marketing strategy, and now non-exec on some others. And I just love solving problems. So you spot a challenge, you spot something, and you think, there's a way of doing this better. There's a way of solving a problem in a way that everybody comes out better out of that situation. And to me, that's what entrepreneurialism is all about. Yes, there can sometimes be a financial benefit in solving that as well. But I think, increasingly, we're also seeing social entrepreneurs, the idea that actually people look at challenges that we've got in society and say, well, actually, can we bring innovation to that challenge and create a solution? And out of that work and being involved in the small business community, I came across the Federation of Small Businesses and got involved in policy work. So, that sort of discussion with government, local, and increasingly these days, most of my work is at a national government level, to say, well, what do we do to create a great landscape for SMEs? And of course, many people who working within government may never have been involved in sort of the coalface, as it were, of running a small business. So part of it is just saying, great idea you've had there, but this might not quite play out as you think it does because of these issues to do with the small business community. And so it's having that dialogue and collaborating to create a better environment for small businesses.
And having that real hands-on experience. So, and talking about the challenge of solving, you love spotting a problem and then solving it so we can all come out better. So bear that in mind on my next question, Ian, because we're talking about the huge challenges that we face on climate change. And at Federation of Small Business, you are Deputy Chair of UK Policy and you lead on net zero. And you're regularly meeting the decision makers to develop those policy solutions to create a better environment. Can you explain the joined up approach for businesses and governments when we're talking about climate change, bearing in mind what you just said about we all want to come out better?
Absolutely. And one of the key things here, our focus is on the word sustainability, because actually, as small business owners, we all want sustainable businesses. We want to make sure that our business isn't around for the next couple of weeks, but for the next couple of years, for the next couple of decades. And in order to do that, there's a whole range of things we need to consider. And one of those is, are we making sure that the impact our business has on the environment and the community round about us is positive to ensure that that business can survive for the future? And the other thing that we need to think about is financially. Are we making sure our business is resilient and therefore sustainable? And of course, one of the ways that actually the whole business situation and sustainability and environment all coalesce is around energy. We all want affordable energy for our business, and we want to make sure we've got a resilient, sustainable supply. So when we think about actually, can I take some control of my energy production myself? Can I ensure that the UK has a range of energy solutions so it is resilient in the energy supply to the small business network? Those are important not just for the sake of the environment, but actually because a small business needs those to be resilient for the future. And so having a conversation about sustainability, resilience, and straightforward cost savings that you get from being more energy efficient and potentially being involved in production of your own energy is a perfect combination where everybody's benefiting. The environment's benefiting, the government's benefiting because it's starting to hit its carbon reduction targets, and the small business is benefiting because they've got a more resilient business and they're saving money.
So what you're saying to small businesses and about small businesses is actually there are practical steps you can make towards going green. And because you mentioned cost, because cost is a key factor here, isn't it? I suppose there are grants that small businesses can tap into, green grants, and ultimately you're saying costs can be lower and sales can possibly increase. But it's tough, isn't it, for a small business?
It is absolutely tough. We've got a report around, what are the challenges? What do small businesses think about the sustainability and environmental and net zero perspective? And what are the challenges in them? So we know that 51% believe that it's a high priority for their business. So roughly half of small businesses believe it's a high priority. And almost 2/3 think that it should be a high priority for the government. So the landscape is that small businesses want to be a part of this, realise that it's important, but only less than a quarter actually think that they will be able to transition their own business to net zero by 2050. So what we're seeing here is a big mismatch between the importance of it, the ambition of government, and the ability of small businesses to actually deliver and achieve what is needed on that. And 2 in 5, 38% of small businesses cite lack of access to finance and access to capital as a barrier to transition. Mm-hmm. So exactly as you say, it's that financial piece. Many of them have done the small things already. Most businesses will have switched to LED light bulbs, for example. And now we're on, as inevitably with a journey like this, you move from the easy things to the harder things. And we're now on the harder things, which require, a greater access to capital to implement. And how do we make sure that small businesses have the right finance, the right skills, the right knowledge, and the capability to make the transition?
The nub of it is finding a way of small businesses to access the finance, because you're saying that 51%, I think you said 51% see it as a priority, this transition, this sustainability, but 2/3 see it as priority for government. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Finance is definitely one of the key barriers. And one of the challenges so often we're seeing at the moment is many of the schemes designed by government to help business in general are often designed with big business first rather than small business first. If the government wants to achieve its targets, and if we want to make sure that our small business community is resilient and has access to affordable energy, then we need to make sure they are able to transition as well. And therefore, schemes need to be designed from the bottom up to be small business friendly as well. A really good example is actually in the West Midlands. They've had a scheme whereby you basically get an energy assessor in, looks at a business, says, well, these are things you could do. And also then it aligns to funding to help the small business do that. And it was designed from the get-go to be a small business scheme. And it's a pilot here in the West Midlands. And what we're saying is actually this needs to be rolled out nationally to give small businesses that advice and guidance. Because one of the other things for small business owners is not only do they need access to capital, but also a small business owner has got a lot on their plate. You know, you're responsible for everything. And how do we make sure that that small business owner has the skills, the knowledge, understanding of the best ways and what are the most optimal things to do in their business to reduce their costs, to reduce their energy consumption, to make themselves a more resilient business? And again, external help in terms of government support or supply chain support. So big companies helping their supply chains is vital if we want to help small businesses make that transition.
Okay, so supply chains are key, but also all of us have to bear some responsibility, don't we? Because you might say that perhaps small businesses feel perhaps unfairly blamed for a lot of the issues that are going on in terms of sustainability, but there are responsibilities that we all have, don't we, in changing our lifestyles and perhaps creating a demand for less plastic, for example. I was involved in a plastic-free project. Why do businesses continue to produce plastic? But perhaps if we buy less, so it's a consumer issue, isn't it? And what do you think the responsibility is of the consumer?
Largely speaking, business is very good at saying what is the consumer wanting, and we will match our output to match consumer demand, because otherwise we'll lose customers. So it's a very simple formula, really. And so absolutely, if we want small businesses to make the transition, a couple of things. So one is, say what you're looking for. Be upfront about saying this is what's important to me, and growing that demand into environmentally sustainable products and solutions means that small businesses say there's a market opportunity there. Let's follow that market opportunity. But also, let's be honest about some of this. Some of these things cost more than we've perhaps traditionally been used to paying. And are we as consumers not going to say, right, small business, I want you to now do this, but I want you to carry on doing it at this price that you've been doing before? And that's just not sustainable. If we want to, have a local cafe to go to, then we've got to be prepared to pay a bit more for that cafe. So we're not travelling, getting in the car to drive somewhere. We can walk there. They're providing us with the locally sourced ingredients for the food and all of those sort of things. Great. Are we prepared to pay a bit more as consumers for that, and to support and encourage that small business in delivering that, rather than saying, yeah, but I can go and get it cheaper at a big brand name down the road, and abandoning that small business? And small businesses, particularly those community cafes, those people that are often the glue to our local communities, are really struggling right now. They've seen those big increase in energy costs. They're seeing increase in employment costs, all of these things. And they're saying, oh, and by the way, can you do this net zero thing? We as consumers have got to be ethical consumers in terms of recognising that actually that means getting behind and supporting our small business
and that's a cultural issue.
Doing that.
And that is a cultural issue as well, isn't it? As you say, we want to source goods that are local, that we can buy local, that we don't need to necessarily even get on any kind of transport to go and get. So Ian, can you spell out some of the basic steps for small businesses to get to net zero, like electric car? I mean, okay, we've talked about costs, we've talked about those issues, but what are the steps? Reducing waste, company policy, biodegradables, all of that. What are the basic steps to get? What advice would you give to a small business owner right now?
The first thing I would say is, where do you spend money in your business? And where can often wherever you're spending money normally means there's a carbon cost to it. The two are very closely linked. And so actually, if you can save money, you can normally also reduce your carbon impact. So the two things are very closely aligned. So look at your energy bill. Where can I save money on energy? What are all the things that are utilizing energy in my business? Right. What can I do to reduce my consumption? So the basics. You do LED light bulbs. You look at your IT stock, your computers that you're using. Are they up to date? Are they efficient? Do you make sure things are turned off when you leave premises at night? Basic stuff, but it's important. And partly that is as well, not just about the MD taking all the responsibility, but saying culturally within the organisation, how do we encourage everybody to take ownership of reducing their energy consumption in whatever they're doing? How do we allow everybody to suggest ways that we can make savings in that respect? So creating a culture of reducing waste, reducing energy consumption within your organisation is really valuable, and that will help build resilience. So that's the very basics you can do. Let's cut any energy consumption that we've got within an organisation that we don't need. Second thing is then to start looking at where do we source our energy from. So can we switch from a generic provider to one that guarantees a clean energy source? Some of them will now do deals. If you can match when you need your energy to when there is oversupply on the grid, you can now actually save again money on your energy bill by doing that. So for example, if you do have an electric car, can you charge it in periods when it's not needed? The energy is less needed on the grid. And so you can pay very little or sometimes nothing for that energy. So bits around that. Then we get into a challenge, because now we've done some of the easy bits and now we're into the hard bits. And of course, one of the next steps is looking, well, can we do micro energy generation, solar on the roof, air source heat pumps for heating and all of those sort of things. And here we hit another barrier for many small businesses. Many small businesses do not own their premises. So a landlord owns the premises, business owners paying the energy bill. No incentive for the landlord to do anything because they're not paying the energy bill. So making savings, insulation, solar, etc., doesn't help the landlord. Small business goes, but it's not worth me making a big capital investment, and I may not be able to afford it on the building, and my landlord may not want me to make changes, and that's in my contract. And so I can't make these changes either. So what we're calling the landlord-tenant split, this sort of mix mash of requirements and outcomes and benefits, which means nobody's taking the step of making change to our business stock of buildings, make them more energy efficient, to look at micro energy generation, because it's quite complex there. So one of the things, again, that we're calling on government to do is say, actually, you need to make this situation clearer, and a requirement on landlords a bit more to go, actually, you need to support a small business tenant in this, looking at finance, which may go across tenancies, all of these sort of things. And the range of stuff saying, government, you need to look at this. We're not saying there's definitely, this is the solution, but here's a range of ideas. But this is at the moment holding back small businesses. And
these are really complicated challenges, aren't they? And those would involve difficult talks around the table about how you make change to that and how we make a difference. So that takes it to that next level, doesn't it? So as you say, there are those initial changes that we all talk about every day about how we can be more sustainable. But once you start looking at the more involved practices of just that, the issue around the landlord, that tenant relationship, is absolutely pivotal as well. And that's where you're taking those discussions in terms of the policy discussions you're having with government. So how does your work, moving on to you a little bit, how does your work on net zero, you're heavily involved in this, impact your own lifestyle? Now, I know you are I think you're a very keen cyclist, you're quite outdoorsy. How do you have that mix? And I did say you probably don't have a lot of spare time at the beginning when I looked at your CV. But how does your interest in this and saving our planet impact your own lifestyle?
My background is quite interesting in that respect. Back when I was a teenager, I got quite into the environmental thing. I was passionate about, we should be good for the environment. But then in my 20s, I became a bit of a petrol head. I still am. I still actually like cars. But I was involved in setting up and growing my business, and really perhaps lost sight of some of that sustainability piece. I probably was still, I didn't deliberately try to do anything that's bad for the environment, but I certainly wasn't focused on it. Had children in my late 30s, and that really, I think, changed my mindset a bit. Again, a bit about, do I want to make sure that I leave this planet in a better place? And also, I've always been passionate about the outdoors. So I've always loved walking, climbing mountains, all of that sort of thing, cycling. And again, I got more back into my cycling. I had a massive shift in concept about, so I've been a traditional lycra-clad cyclist in my teens and early 20s. And then suddenly discovered, actually, when I'm cycling to work, I can just wear normal clothes and just ride a bit slower and use my bike as a form of transport. And started doing that just in and around Coventry, and discovered, and again, this is where that combination of actually deliver good outcomes, not just in terms of environment, but actually the primary outcome, I saved a ton of money in parking charges and fuel for those day-to-day journeys of sort of 4 or 5 miles. I felt better. I got to wherever I needed to be, and that bit of exercise has got your brain firing and it's sparking, as it were. And also, it saves time. Day-to-day moving around in the city, the bike is by far the quickest way. And there's a load of work that we need to be doing in our cities around sustainable transport infrastructure. I think often we have a higher perception risk than the actual risk. It is relatively safe.
It is. And you've worked it into your lifestyle and helping create that better planet. And as you say, having your children has also made a difference. And in terms of looking for solutions, but creating a better planet for the future, for future generations. We're running out a little bit of time, but I can't, and I'm not going to now have time to run my own business. Well, it's actually not my business idea. It's my son's business idea that he was running past me last night. A really great idea as a medical student. I'm going to have to save that for another time. But I do want to take this opportunity to ask you for your next business idea, because you've always got an idea there, from when you were at school. There must be. Are you allowed to share? Have you got a new business idea? Got something else up your sleeve?
I do have a new business idea, which I'm starting on. I'm passionate about, actually, one of the ways that we understand that the importance of the environment and appreciate the value of some of the beautiful spaces we've got in the UK is by getting out there and doing it. Sustainable family holidays and supporting and helping families around basically short cycle touring holidays. Drawing on my own experience, I've been cycle touring with my 2 children since they were about 6 or 7 years old, and to take some of the lessons learned that I've learned and sort of creating, in effect, package holidays for families to go and experience that, and using sustainable travel. I actually also went with my son just a couple of weeks ago on another organisation that's doing that more for adults. So my son, who's 14, joined us, creating cycle touring holidays which use start and finish at railway stations. Mm-hmm. So you can get there on the train, you can then cycle and enjoy a low carbon holiday. And again, this goes back to, it's something I'm keen on because I appreciate the outcome of it from an environmental perspective, but also consumers are looking for it. Mm-hmm. People want it. And so again, if we can make sure demand is there from a consumer base, for small businesses to do stuff in a sustainable, environmentally friendly way, businesses will do it because they want to support what consumers want.
And there's the joined up approach. We all work together to achieve what we want to achieve and create a better world. Ian, thank you so much for your time today. There can be no doubt that climate change is the biggest challenge of our time. Today, we must reduce greenhouse gas emissions to slow global warming. Today, we must act for tomorrow, adjusting our lifestyles to current and future impacts of climate change. Today, we must use our collective wisdom to deliver on our climate commitments. Today, we work for tomorrow's world. Thank you very much to Ian today for your time, and thank you also for sharing your latest business idea, which is that sustainable approach to family holidays. Thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you. Loved it.
I'm Amanda, and I'm here to tell you that you've been listening to the Decarbonisation Dialogue, a podcast from Salix. For more information about our work and to find out more content, please visit salixfinance.co.uk/podcasts.